There's a reason most writers stick to the standard chronological and narrative format, and that's because it's confusing as fuck without it. Welcome everyone to another round of the Mere Mortals book reviews. My name is Karen and I do these reviews for those who want to transcend beyond their own mere mortality to get the juicy, interesting information out of the books. And today we have one which is kind of juicy because it's related to brothels, and in particular brothels in Peru. It is La Casa Verde, or in English, The Green House by Mario Vargas Llosa. This book was published in 1966 and it's 430 pages in length, or at least the Spanish version is, which will be slightly different in English. It's set in Peru, and in particular the Piura region, which is near Ecuador. So think of Peru, and then it's right up on the northern section near Ecuador. And this is more of a think of like a jungle, the la selva is what they say in Spanish, and it's more a very rainforesty Amazon type of deal. That's the feel you get from it. The book itself has about 12 characters in it, of roughly equal importance. So whilst reading it, you're gonna have to keep your mind pretty open because you're gonna need to keep thinking about all these different characters and how they relate. It goes into their relationships, the brutality between some of the characters, and the sort of sadism, I guess you'd say in some way. This mysterious brothel that appears to congregate everyone together almost. The rubber trade and natives. So there's a whole lot of interweaving themes going on here. I'm going to quickly jump onto a little bit about the author and this book in particular. So this was his second novel, and I have actually reviewed his first, not novel, but collection of stories, which was The Cubs and Other Stories on here before. So it's not new to this channel. This was set over 40 years, but stylistically it is all over the place. So the book and the style of writing is very particular, and that's going to be my first theme. It's the narrative. What is a story? So whilst reading this book, and you're going to have a different experience than me because I was reading in the native Spanish, which I guess is closer to what he wanted to convey. It's his native language. But there's a takeaway because my Spanish is not fluent. And in particular, it's not fluent in Peruvian Spanish. And so the thing, I guess, to convey across is he purposefully wrote it in a strange way to make it all sort of one thing. So you're sort of asking, what is a story? Well, stories are usually a connection through time, I guess you would say. And you'd be like, okay, even stories which maybe jump forward and backwards somewhat, you still, like, you can have time travel in stories, you can have flashbacks to the past. It still usually goes from a place of, I guess, uncertainty or something to a place of more certainty, or there is some sort of linear progression. It doesn't need to be an exact straight line, but it has something pushing it forward so that you can follow the story, I guess. Otherwise, it could just be random bits and bobs all over the place and you wouldn't know. Well, his purpose was to merge this all into one thing. So I sort of feel like, and he stated that explicitly in other places about this book, I think his purpose was not to have a story where you could sort of connect dots and be like, oh, okay, this is the general progression. It's a story for you to just be like, okay, I read this thing and it's like a big jumble in my mind. There's no one sort of directional linear plot. And so whilst reading this, you will come across the stylistic changes. So what has he actually done? Well, he split his book into multiple parts, and then in these multiple parts, there would be usually 5 sections related to the different characters. And the characters don't know each other. Not every character knows each other character. And it's set across the time as well. So that 40-year time limit I was talking about, it'll be one section in here of talking about these 2 characters, then another 2 will be 40 years later, then another 2 will be maybe somewhere in the middle, and you're trying to piece this together and be like, okay, how does this one relate to this one? Where does that come in? And then there's these chunks of text where you'll have the normal sort of format, which is paragraphs with some delineations of people speaking and whatnot. And then there's these others, which is just a wall of text, just straight through, basically no grammar or punctuation, very simple sort of sentences. And you don't know who, like, what's going on really. Like, who is anyone speaking? Is this a narration? Is this an observation? Is this what is this? Who is it even relating to? So I had a hugely hard time understanding this book, to be honest. And what made it so confusing, I just believe it was all of this switching going on. But there is a couple of caveats. One, I was reading this over a longer time period than normal, so I wasn't reading this every day. Sometimes I'd leave it a week and then pick it up again. It was sort of sitting by my bedside for a long time and getting intermittent use. So instead of reading this over a super long period, instead of a short period, it was spread over months. I'd say, probably like 3 to 5 months, something like that. The other part was obviously the Spanish and the slang. I guess I'll just go into my observations now. The slang, the Peruvian slang is so difficult. Even with my translator, which is pretty damn good, it just couldn't pick up all of these slight nuances of the Peruvian slang. And there'd be some bits where I was like, I can't even tell if this is a character. It's capitalized like it's a character, La Chunga, but the way they were talking about it didn't even seem to make sense. I think realizing later on, I believe it was because they were it was like a native character, and so they were sort of treating her or him, maybe, I don't even know, La Chunga, it should be a her, as if it wasn't a person. That could have been the reason, but there could be a myriad of reasons, to be honest. I only managed to get through about half of the book. It got to a point where I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not enjoying reading this. It was not even good practice for my Spanish because the slang was just so difficult to understand. So a couple of takeaways for me. Don't read in chunks over time if you know it's going to be a hard book, and then that it makes it even harder by you splitting it out over time. And probably experimental work should be read in your own tongue, so you give it the full go. This was highly experimental, highly non-standard, and boy, did I suffer in the reading for it. So in summary, this was mostly just confusing. I really did struggle with this. And part of this was my fault as well, like I was saying, with the Spanish, with the reading over long time periods. I didn't help myself with my with the way I was reading this book. I did things wrong, so even though it might seem like a slightly harsher rating, keep that in mind. But I feel that even if I had done the right things, this book still wouldn't have jumped out at me. And I think that's because there is a reason most people write in a linear format. There is a reason most people write in a chronological format and don't introduce too many interweaving stories and too many characters. It's because it can get to the point where it is too confusing. There's maybe something added by doing these things, and then it gets to a point where it's like, no, this is not helpful. I did feel like I gave it enough chances to really stand out and grab at me, but it didn't manage to do it. So overall, I'm giving The Greenhouse by Mario Vargas Llosa a 2.5 out of 10. Not one of my favorites. And so that is it for the end of today's book review. My mere mortalites, thank you for joining me. What are your thoughts on The Greenhouse by Mario Vargas Llosa? You'll notice I didn't even talk about the plot at all, because if you can coherently put this plot together in a book review, kudos to you. But I would love to know, what are your thoughts? Did you like the experimental work? Have you read it in Spanish? All of these things I would find interesting. So leave a comment down below, and I would always get back to you for those. And what are some things you could do for me after listening to all this time and hopefully getting some enjoyment? yeah, leave a comment, subscribe, like, all of those good things. And hopefully we'll see you for the next book review. Kyrun out.